All right, ladies and gentlemen, after what feels like an eternity wait, and it's been 5 years if you've been watching Rebels, ladies and gentlemen, it's almost time. Let's do this.
Oh, I have to sing,
You
don't I?
remember the
Damn it.
words. Star Cheers. It's fucking
This fucking
Star Cheers. Cheers, fucking
Let's work
Star Wars.
for
Jerry and
Jerry and
Jer.
Jer.
We really need to work on coordinating
No, we didn't.
that.
Oh, no, that was terrible.
Because, ladies and gentlemen, a long time ago, it was, well, this is recorded on a Thursday night in a galaxy far, far away, recorded on Zoom via Ring's End. Huge airs. Jerry and Jer came together to talk about Star Wars, and joining me to discuss it all, fresh off rubbing shoulders with the likes of Ash freaking Ketchum on Comic-Con. It is a man who has always been the very best, like no one ever was, when it comes to talking Star Wars. The one, the only, Jerry O'Brien. Jerry, you're very welcome back to page 180 for Star Wars. Talk to me. What's the hype level like just a week away from Ahsoka? Oh my God.
Before I say that, I can see your writers are on the SAG-AFTRA strike because that writing was terrible. Terrible. My Jesus.
You can't get the staff these days.
You can't get the staff these days. No, I tell you, the excitement is, I don't really know how to describe it, to be honest. When Comic-Con is just this past weekend, and the screens at Comic-Con had the latest trailer on repeat. So when two trailers on repeat had that, and then that was leading then into Loki season 2, and then it led back to Ahsoka. So I'm just literally looking, going, "This is the best of everything. Like, this is just amazing. Like, oh my God." It was just to keep seeing it. I'm like, it just brings it fresh into your mind. I'm like, oh my Jesus, this is literally a week away.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, and I saw an article during the week, and it said Ahsoka here to save Star Wars. I'm like, I hope that's not being too hopeful. I'm like, I really like the last couple of years, and we reviewed The Mandalorian season 3, and I think we both liked season 3, but it certainly wasn't on par with previous seasons. We both kind of liked Boba Fett for different reasons. Again, wasn't really on par with earlier stuff. This, to me, I'm like, if this doesn't go well, then I think Disney are going to go, right, we need to really seriously take a step back from Star Wars and really evaluate what we're going to do here. Disney has come into a lot of criticism lately that they're firing out films and they're not doing well. And that's not good. Now, obviously, this is a Disney Plus show, so it is slightly different. But this needs to do well for literally the survival of all of Star Wars. The sequel trilogy, even though it made a lot of money, was not received well. Certain shows that have come out have been okay, but they, again, have not been received well. This needs to blow our socks off, and it needs to blow the audience socks off. And if it does that, and I genuinely feel it will, from the trailers alone, I think we are getting something special here, like really special here. And I'm like, that latest trailer for me, it was pretty much take for take from the previous trailer, but there's something added in, and we'll get to that. Obviously, there was a little bit added in the background. I'm like, oh my God, like, just fucking hook it to my veins.
Yes.
We are in for something special, I believe. Anyway, if it doesn't blow our socks off, though, Star Wars, really, the future of Star Wars is in trouble.
This, like you say, and like you're underscoring there, this is important. It's important to, I don't know about all of Star Wars, but it is crucial to the Filoniverse. It is the make or break moment for the Filoniverse, because for years, when Dave Filoni, who, for anyone who doesn't know him, is essentially the Kevin Feige of Star Wars, or a certain corner of Star Wars at the moment. Maybe more, it's more comparable to James Gunn, because there's different aspects of the DCU. You know what I mean? You have kind of the Joker verse, and you have the Batman verse, but then you have James Gunn's new universe that he's going to be taking over, and that's kind of what Filoni is, where he is the central kind of visionary in Star Wars. He is essentially George Lucas's Padawan, and he began his work kind of being a master of retconning stories. With it started from a poorly received movie, The Clone Wars, but then turned into a very successful TV show called The Clone Wars, which he ran by himself, that basically retconned all of the background stuff that took us from the second prequel movie up through to the end of Return of the Sith, Revenge of the Sith. But what happened was, like, he was batting a perfect game for so many years. Like, he had the Clone Wars, which bled into Rebels, and that's what Ahsoka is essentially. It is a live action sequel of Rebels. And then he went into The Mandalorian, which is obviously his live action debut. First two series knocked it out of the park. But since then, we've had the Book of Boba Fett. We've had, Mando season 3, which kind of, again, just, it was the first time there was cracks in the armor of the Filoniverse. And again, like, Mando season 3, keep in mind, for what it's worth, Dave Filoni can't be blamed, so to speak, for that, because he stepped away from Mando and left it in the arms of Jon Favreau to kind of look after, because he was focusing on this, because this is the story he wants to tell. This is a sequel to Rebels, which was an animated TV show about a gang of rebels, who basically takes us up from early into the Empire's run and takes us up through to the end. Like, the end of Rebels is after the Battle of Endor, and kind of shows us the beginning of the rebellion and how it started small with this band of rebels. Not that they're crediting them for starting the entire rebellion, but just kind of, this is how the rebellion started in one area and how they connected with the larger kind of scope, and then it kind of brings it home. What the purpose of our discussion today is, and by the way, spoiler warning, we're going to spoil everything. That's the point of this conversation, okay? Twofold. One, for any big Star Wars fans, we want to theorize, we want to talk, we want to have our chats about what we are expecting, wanting, and needing from Ahsoka. But two, we also want to do essentially Ahsoka for dummies, okay? If you didn't heed our warnings in the last kind of round of Star Jars covering Mando season 3, if you didn't go away and do your homework and watch Rebels like we told you every week to, the concern is, and this is a danger for this show, and is an actual talking point that I think we'll be addressing when we see the episodes and review them, is we'll have to look at, this might work for us, but is it working for the larger audience who haven't watched Rebels? And there's a lot of that audience when you consider the size and scale of Star Wars fandom. What we want to do is make it easier for you guys by giving you a profile of what you need to know about the main characters, giving you a bit of backstory, and then talking about what we might see from those characters in here. So we're going to focus on the big ones so that when they show up, you're kind of like, oh yeah, I know stuff about that, and you can kind of join in even if you haven't watched it, okay? So again, if there's any specific questions you want to know as well, more than happy to take us in. Tweet me in, or get in touch, however you want to get in touch. But I'm more than happy to take questions and kind of answer any questions you guys may have heading into this. So we're going to start off, and like I said, spoilers from here on out. We're going to be talking all of Star Wars. Everything is on the table, leading into this. We'll start off with the first character is Ahsoka. So Ahsoka, to give you a background, not only is Ahsoka, I'm not exaggerating here because it's relevant, she is not only my favorite character in Star Wars, but for me, she is, Jerry, if you think that's shocking, wait until my next statement. She is the lead protagonist of Star Wars, okay? She is the central character of all of Star Wars, because the difference she has with every other character, with Anakin, with Luke, with Obi-Wan, with every other character we've seen in Star Wars, is that every single story Ahsoka's in, she becomes the perspective character in that story as soon as she shows up on screen. Even when she's in theory in a support role like Rebels, when shit hits the fan, like the incredible episode where she had a duel with Darth Vader, and for reasons, if you don't know why that is so, you'll know in a second, but that was so iconic. as soon as that happened, she literally force pushed all of the other characters out of shot and is like, this is my show now. I'm the captain now. Even when she showed up in The Mandalorian, literally, Mando was left being a bouncer for her fight because Ahsoka is the main character wherever Ahsoka goes. She has been alongside Anakin. She has been alongside Luke. She has been alongside Obi-Wan. She has been alongside every iconic character in Star Wars history. Vader, Maul, all of them. And she is the main character no matter what. If you don't know about her, she is a Togruta female, discovered originally by Plo Koon, and trained as a Jedi in Coruscant. She's the Padawan of Anakin Skywalker. Hilarious, iconic conversation that Dave Filoni will talk about, where he's talking to George Lucas, and George Lucas is like, "Oh yeah, Anakin's Padawan," and then Dave Filoni is like, "Anakin doesn't have a Padawan," and then George Lucas turns around and is like, yeah, he does. Like, totally 100% convinced. And that's how Ahsoka was born, and they started creating her for the Clone Wars movie. Who's got perhaps the longest tenure of anyone in canon. She was introduced early into the Clone Wars in the much maligned 2008 movie, then essentially becomes the main character of the Clone Wars TV show, to the point that the last 4 episodes focus specifically on her arc through Order 66. She became a part of the rebellion initially as a reluctant whistleblower working with Bail Organa as Fulcrum. Her 2008 novel, I recommend the audiobook, voiced by Ashley Eckstein, who voices the character in all of the animated shows, by the way. That charts her life to that point post Order 66, so how she went from just a Jedi in hiding, then joined up with the rebels. And although we did meet her later in the Mandalorian episode, The Jedi, it is crucial to note that, and she probably will make this clear in this show, and I hope she does because she needs to, she is not a Jedi, having willfully left the Order and gone her own way after falsely being accused of murder in one of the Clone Wars' most shocking arcs that still to this day resonates. And that, I think, is what makes Ahsoka stand out. She is someone who has all these powers and is arguably, as like, she's gone toe-to-toe with all of them. She's beaten Maul and Jules. She's able to go toe-to-toe with Anakin. She's gone toe-to-toe with Vader as well, like even like in that form. She is as powerful a Jedi as you will meet, but she's also said, this isn't for me. I'm going to go my own way. But unlike other Jedis who've gone their own way and turned to the dark side, she has chosen to still represent good, but she just doesn't fall into the beliefs of the Jedi system. Like she will certain beliefs, and we kind of saw that in The Mandalorian, but there's an element of her where she she will do her own thing. If she disagrees with it, she'll challenge things. She is one of the most charted characters in all of Star Wars, but there are also some huge holes in what we know and don't know about her life, including her death, which we have zero info on. So Jerry, with that in mind, I want to know, what do you want us to learn in this series? We know, for example, that we may get some flashbacks based on the trailers. So
yes.
Yeah, what do you want to learn and what do you want to see in this series?
I would like them to go through how she has gone from Rebels to now. I want to know a little bit. We're not going to get a huge amount of info here, but I would like to know exactly how she went from Rebels to here. Now, from the Mandalorian episode, The Jedi, that we see, it's our first iteration of live action Ahsoka, which was fantastic episode, by the way. I absolutely loved that. And you know what, I do agree with what you said there. The fact that any episode she's in, anything she's in, she is the main character. No matter, that's simple as that. If you could lift her up and put her into the original trilogy, she would probably take over from Luke Skywalker. Let's be perfectly honest. That's the truth of it there now. When it comes to her coming into the Mandalorian, obviously she is searching for a particular person, well, 2 particular people. And the one, obviously, that she's searching for is Thrawn. That's, she says in the episode, where is Grand Admiral Thrawn? Now, when I heard that, I freaked out. And you know me, I love that particular character. But obviously, she is on this mission to find him. But obviously, there's another reason. Of course, we can talk about him, this other character, later. See, I learned from the last show. I learned. See, I'm not going off on tangents anymore. Basically, and you alluded to it there. She has said it. She is no Jedi. And and even coming from Rebels, we're not even going as far back as Clone Wars now. We're talking about Rebels. When she faces Vader, Vader says that is not the Jedi way, and she says, "I am no Jedi." And I'm like, oh, I feel we're going to get that line in the show somewhere. I do believe that. But then that gives more questions than it does answer others. It's like, okay, she's no Jedi, but she carries lightsabers. She obviously still has Force powers or can channel the Force. Exactly what has she done over the past 20 years apart from search for Thrawn? And I would like to see a little bit of that. Now, let's be perfectly honest. Star Wars is not the best at setting up people to explain exactly what they've done and where they've been. We'll only get a little bit there. When it comes to her, though, and this show, because as we said, this show is essentially next live action series of Rebels.
Yeah.
For people like you, me, and you, we've watched Rebels, but there are people who be Star Wars fans who are like, I'm not watching cartoons. I'm not. So you're not going to get any background as to who these people actually are. We've only seen a sliver of Ahsoka in the show, in Mandalorian and Boba Fett. So we need to get a slight bit more backstory and something that casual fans will be able to get into. Like my wife, for instance, she likes all the live action shows so far. She likes the movies, but she's never watched any of the cartoons. So when it came to Ahsoka in the shows that we've seen, who's that? And you explain it to her, but that's the problem. People don't want things explained to them by other viewers. They want it explained on the screen. So I'm hoping that we get some sort of explanation as to who really these characters are for casual fans and exactly what they've been doing. When you look at the trailers, that because there's been a couple of different versions, a couple of things added in here and there and whatnot, you're kind of getting you see certain characters, you see new characters, you hear old characters, and you're like, okay, this is getting me excited. Is it getting the casual fans excited? And I'm going to say yes. For the simple fact is, you're getting characters that we have no idea who they are. Now, we would be self-proclaimed experts on Star Wars at this point. We haven't a clue who they are, and we're very excited about it. We're seeing lightsabers again. So obviously, we kind of saw lightsabers in The Mandalorian, but not really. The dark saber, you can kind of discount that really. These are real, actual lightsabers. These are lightsabers that are being wielded by good and bad, so it's not like one or the other. It's like we're getting good and bad here. When it comes to Ahsoka, though, she obviously has this personal mission, and it's about finding two people. It's about finding the big bad and one of the good. I really want to talk about that good later on because I have my own theories. Now, I've not always been right, but we will get there. But it's essentially Ahsoka. It needs to have in those four, because we're getting 2 episodes next week. It needs to have in that a slight explanation for the casual fans exactly who Ahsoka is, what she's doing, where she's coming from, where she's been the past 20 years. Why did we not see her in the original trilogy? As I said, we've only seen that little snippet of her. We need a little bit more. And that's not for me because we know exactly who she is. We know exactly what she's doing, and it's kick ass. It's badass. I'm like, yeah, I'm all in for this, man. All in for this. But for the casual fans, they're going to need a little bit more help. Because as I say, casual fans don't want other people explain, oh, this is this character and they were in that show. And they don't want that. I'm like, I couldn't be arsed. It will turn people off. It will turn people off. And we don't need that. We don't want that because there will be consequences. But essentially, Ahsoka she's obviously the main character of her show because it's called Ahsoka. She is an ex-Jedi who is one of the most badass people in all of the Star Wars universe. She is on a personal mission to find two people, and this is the story of how she goes about it.
I agree with a lot of what you're saying. What I would love to see is I'd love to see a live action reenactment of the epilogue of Rebels. A previously on type, and we see that in live action because again, like you see, the end of Rebels is Sabine is waiting somewhere that's quite important to us. And then all of a sudden she's getting ready to leave the kind of central place. And then Ahsoka shows up dressed almost like Gandalf the White, having returned from. And this is what I love about Rebels, and kind of hope we get a lot of this, but there's a lot of mythical lore in the Clone Wars and Rebels, and there's a lot of kind of magical stuff that's very different to what we've gotten in live action Star Wars since The Mandalorian, but really, really adds to it. And it's something that we love about it. And it's something that I hope they keep. But for example, Ahsoka spent time, she got in that epic lightsaber battle with Darth Vader, which for me is the best lightsaber battle in Star Wars periods by far. Like that's it. It is one, and then everyone else is competing for two. And I know there's some epic ones in there. But that ended. A lot of people assumed that she died there, particularly the characters in Rebels assumed that she died there, but they waited 2 seasons to give us a payoff for that fight. And it ended up happening that, I don't want to get into it, but like she ended up getting pulled into a kind of multiversal type area, the world between worlds, which controls all time and space. And then she ended up jumping back out of there because it was invaded by Emperor Palpatine, and jumping back out of there. And we don't know what happened there between then and the end of Rebels. And that in between was the Galactic Civil War, like the original trilogy. So we don't know what she was doing for that. That's what I'd love to get answers for here, because we're getting flashbacks. We've Hayden Christensen like giving her advice as Anakin in freshly recorded voiceover work. So we're likely to see flashbacks of her and Hayden at some point, probably much in the same way we got flashbacks of Hayden and Obi-Wan in Obi-Wan Kenobi. Again, I don't expect that we're going to see full episode flashbacks or get massively new material, because the Clone Wars, like 7 series, they covered a lot of ground. They pretty much told the story they need to tell, but it would be cool to see the two of them together. But if we're doing a flashback type series, that's a gap I really want filled in. And one thing I love is that Filoni always came out and said, because he always intended to go back to this story, but he just didn't know how. And this is probably what his vision always was. Well, we didn't know how, but this is probably what his vision always was. The one thing he always said about that ending is, don't assume that you know when that ending took place. Do you know what I mean? That ending could have taken place, like we all assumed that it happened just after the Battle of Endor, because at the end of it, we get this monologue from one of the characters kind of explaining, like, what had happened. And they didn't show us all of the Civil War because we'd seen it in the movies. But we assume that it happens just after the Battle of Endor, but we've no idea. That could have happened after we saw Ahsoka in The Mandalorian. It could happen years later. So again, like, we don't know when that is, and I want that part of the timeline filled in. I don't care about how Ahsoka dies. I don't want her to die. If she never dies in Star Wars canon, I'm okay with that, just because she's my favorite character and I don't want her to die. And if I'm left with imagining for the rest of my days that she lived a nice long life and died of old age when the time was right, I'd be happy with that. I don't care about having that aspect of it. I fear that I will see it one day, but I don't want it. But that's kind of where I'm at and what I want to see. One thing we both wanted to see, and one thing we've been praying for since that crucial episode, The Mandalorian, you've spoke about it already. And one thing that we've learned over the past few months, we're getting exactly the way we wanted, is Grand Admiral Thrawn. Arguably the most intriguing enemy in Star Wars history. I'm not saying iconic, but I'm saying intriguing, maybe interesting. And we also learned that we're getting him the right way. We're getting him in the form of the actor who originally voiced him iconically, Lars Mikkelsen, who is the brother of Mads, and an excellent performer. So we're getting Thrawn the way we wanted him. If you don't know who Thrawn is, he's a Trish Grand Admiral of the Imperial Navy, who, when you look at the hierarchy of power at one stage in the Empire during kind of the Civil War era. It was basically the Emperor at the top with Darth Vader as his right hand, and then you had Thrawn like there or thereabouts. And there were some days where Thrawn was ahead of Vader in the pecking order. He was that high up. He was originally a character from the Legend series that was decanonized, but then he was reintroduced by Dave Filoni as the main antagonist of seasons 3 and 4 of Rebels. Then his backstory was brought into new canon by Timothy Zahn, who wrote the original Tron series in 2 self-titled book trilogies, Tron and Tron Chiss Ascendancy, that I cannot recommend enough. Again, the audiobooks are brilliant if you want to kind of fly through them. Similar to Batman, he's not force sensitive or powered, but he has power, resources, and most crucially, supreme intellect on his side. Tron respects and studies his enemies, even down to their art, to understand their moves, and every time you think our heroes are going to be ahead of him, he is one step ahead of them every single time, and that's what makes him amazing. And I love the balancing act that Rebels had with Tron, where they always had him be one step ahead, but he, like, again, you can't just have him kill off all our heroes. You know what I mean? So there was kind of, but they always made our heroes look strong, but kept him as badass and intelligent. They never weakened him by allowing our heroes to get away from him. He's a really interesting character because we do learn in the audiobooks that he may actually be a double agent of sorts for the Chiss Ascendancy, although he is an outsider crucially in both worlds, in the Imperial world and in the Chiss halls, as he kind of straddles both. Eli Vanto is a name that I want to put on your radar. As a very senior sidekick at Thrawn's, that I think we're going to see Eli in this. It's nailed on. We meet him struggling to climb the ladder in the Empire, but he's also very much a good guy caught in certain circumstances. He rides Thrawn's coattails up to the top of the Empire before then being passed off to the Chiss. And I really think we're nailed on to see him here, because in the audiobooks, it was very much his story's not over, but it was left over for us. One arc to put on your radar is the Heir to the Empire arc, which is the first installment of Timothy Zahn's original Legends trilogy that has been decanonized, but the phrase was then invoked in The Mandalorian, discussing Thrawn's impending return. We last saw Thrawn being whisked away by Purrgil to who knows where at the end of Rebels, before hearing in season 3 of The Mandalorian that his return is imminent. We've talked about this literally for years, you and I, Jerry. So, discuss. What are you expecting? What do you want? What's in your wish list? Talk to me about what you're hoping for Thrawn.
I have far too much to say about this. Far too much. So basically, I'll give you my take, I suppose, on Tron. It's exactly what you said, but I want to throw something else in there. It's like you kind of put him as like almost like Batman without superpowers and things like that. It's the same essential thing. The way I look at Tron is he is the Star Wars version of Sherlock Holmes, because he can he'll look at one thing and he'll figure out something, and that's what he did in the books. Now, he was better at it in the newer trilogy that they did, or the 2 new trilogies that Timothy Zahn did, than he was in the older ones. The older ones, he would essentially have been just a bad guy, really. And yes, that whole Heir to the Empire thing. If you read or listen to the newer trilogy of books, and we're talking about the ones before the Ascendancy and what stuff, his whatever way he leans is very much in doubt. Very much in doubt.
Yeah.
He is in service to the Emperor, correct. Does he take orders from the Emperor? Yes. But could you say he is the ultimate bad guy? No.
Nope.
Because he does essentially what he believes to be right. So if that means letting people go, he will let them go. If that means destroying a planet, he'll destroy a planet. But he is very logical in what he does. This slight Vulcan-esque view to life.
Yeah.
He and this is the thing about it. I am actually kind of worried how he's portrayed in this show, because he's very much a tweener in that trilogy. I just listened to it recently because I wanted to get Tron really, really like right in the forefront of my mind. And when you read or listen to that 3rd book, Treason, it's very much through the whole thing. It's like, oh, he's going to go against the Empire, because now he's like, who do I actually protect here? Am I protecting the Chiss, my people, or am I protecting the Empire? Essentially, he didn't really have to make that choice because he was able to do both in the end. But it was very much in doubt, is that if it went more so that that the Chiss were in more danger, he would sacrifice the Empire to save them. But essentially, he needs a strong Empire to keep the Chiss safe in a way, because a strong Empire means that they the Chiss would be safe. But there was, I can't remember the enemies that were in it, but they would see someone who was weaker and attack them first, so then they could gain power and then able to attack the bigger one. So it was kind of like, which does he make stronger? So he was very much a tweener in those books. When you see him in Rebels, there's only the slightest bit of tweener in him. But again, he has that logical. You watch, all you have to do is watch Rebels to know that he let them go on more than one occasion, because that's what suited him. It wasn't about, we have to kill all the rebels. It's like, let them go. We're all right. Let them go. So there was a little bit of him there. I don't think we're going to get that side of Tron in this show. For the simple fact is, they said those words. Ahsoka says those words in the trailer, heir to the Empire. He never saw himself as wanting to take control of the Empire. He never wanted to be the Emperor or the person who... But if it came to it that he would take control in order to protect the people of the Empire, but also the Chiss ascendancy, I could see it going like that. If we see Eli Vanto, I really hope we do. Oh my God, I really hope we do. If we see Eli Vanto, it's a thing where the tweener Tron then comes back into effect. Because exactly what's going to happen with this? What's going to happen with Eli Vanto? Eli Vanto will basically come in and say he's not all bad. He'll say something to that effect. He's not all bad. He's a good man. He's just doing it for the wrong reasons or some shite like that, or the right reasons, or whatever it may be. If we see Eli Vanto, we see the Chiss. And again, I hope that happens. Now, this is why I think we may not see Eli Vanto and we may not see the Chiss, because I genuinely think we're not going to see much of Tron either. If there's 8 episodes in this show, I'll be shocked to see him in more than 2 and 3. Because this is not the Tron show. This is the Ahsoka show. So we're going to see more of her. You're going to see bits and pieces of Tron, because we've obviously seen the back of him in the trailer. And then the extended trailer that was played at Celebration over in London this year saw his face. So we are going to see him. That's guaranteed. We are going to see him. But I'm kind of looking at in the sense of, you look at Gideon from the last series of The Mandalorian. We thought he was going to be in all of it. He was in 3 episodes.
Yeah.
So I genuinely feel that's how they're going to go with this, because they're only going to tease us with him. That's all they're going to do. They are teasing us with Tron. When it comes to Tron, he is probably one of the best written villain. I'm going to say villainesque, because I don't really want to categorize him as a villain, because there's part of me wants to see that good side in him. All right, because he's doing bad things for the right reason or whatever it may be. I don't want to see him as a villain, but I feel like Filoni is building him up to be the big bad, and I don't want to see that. I want to see, even in the end, even if he dies, I want to see some sort of slight redemption. I don't think we're going to get it, but I want to see it, but I don't think we're going to get it. When it comes to Tron, we're going to see him a little bit in this series. I hope we're going to get 2 to 3 seasons of Ahsoka, with another season or 2 of Mandalorian, and then of course this big end game style film that we've been told we're going to get. If we get that, I that would be the absolute end of Tron, 100%. I feel, though, I know you don't want to hear this, but I feel if she's gonna go in that film. And that's when she's gonna die. From the trailer, though, she seems to get in a couple of fights. So we have a couple of really interesting things we're going to see. When it comes to Tron, though, we're only going to slight amount of him here. He is essentially, when you look at the hierarchy in the Empire, the Grand Moffs are gone. There's a Moffs because we saw Moff Gideon. But clearly Moff Gideon doesn't have that many resources because he only had a light cruiser. We see other Imperial agents and Imperial representatives. But the at this point in time, there were only a couple, I think it was 16 Grand Moffs in total. At this point, there's only a couple left, and some of them wouldn't really have that much power. But if you're looking at a hierarchy of Grand Admirals, sorry, I meant Grand Admirals, I beg your pardon. If you're looking at Grand Admirals, there was 16 of them. And at this point in time, we're looking at around about 7-8 years after Return to Jedi. There's probably only maybe 3 or 4 left.
Yeah.
But even if you had all 16 together, there's one person above them all, and that's Grand Admiral Thrawn. Because if Vader was the right hand, Thrawn was the left. Yeah. And even though the Emperor fought with Thrawn so many times, questioned whether he was actually someone who was serving the Empire, he still kept him there. He was still his left hand. Like, you could argue that the top 3 after Palpatine was Grand Moff Tarkin, Grand Admiral Thrawn, and the Emperor. And like you said, it was like there was a pecking order, but that pecking order changed depending on the circumstances. Thrawn never wavered from the top 3. It was as simple as that. He was one one day, he was 3 the next day, 2, 1, 3, whatever it may be. He was always up there, despite the fact that he wasn't human. Every single other member of the hierarchy of the Empire was human. He was the one and only that wasn't human. Now you can argue that I can never remember the guy's name, but the guy who was always with Palpatine in the newer prequel trilogy, and he's even in, I think he's in Rebels as well. Masamida. I think Masamida is his name. He's not human either, but he's nowhere near to the same level as Vader, Tarkin, and Thrawn. So Thrawn is essentially is the heir to the Empire. There is nobody else. There was Grand Admirals in the follow-on books that we've had. I'd love to see them made into a show or a movie or trilogy or something. They were fantastic as well. But essentially, he really is the heir to the Empire. There is nobody else could potentially take over. If he was to come back and say to all the Imperial remnants, I'm back, let's go, he would have a huge fleet to be able to take on the rebels. And not even the rebels, the New Republic. And as we saw from the 3rd season of The Mandalorian, they're dismantling their fleet. Mm-hmm. So all he has to do is get the band back together. Republic's gone, he takes over. Now, of course, that doesn't happen. So I really want to see what does happen. Because we see the New Republic going all the way to Force Awakens, which is 30 years after Return. So between now, so you've got now at this point, it's about 8 years after Return, and then a further 22 years to The Force Awakens. What happens between there and now? And I'm like, oh. So we've got a couple of years now of Thrawn. What I want to know, what happened? Where did he go? What did he do in the, what was it? It's about 13, 14 years, I think. Thereabouts, because when you last see him, it's the start of, say, A New Hope. A New Hope to Return is about 5 years, I think, and then 8 years, so about 13, 14 years there. Where has he been for 13, 14 years? What he's been doing? He's obviously been consolidating some sort of power, ships, fleets, troops, whatever it may be, but there's more to it, and we know there's more to it because he has a particular person, or there was a particular person with him when he went on his little gallivanting with the space whales, you know? So there's a lot to go through. Well, geez, this is going to be about this is going to be 3 hours. So buckle in, ladies and gents. Buckle in, because we've loads to talk about.
Let's talk Sabine Wren. Sabine Wren is someone we've seen a lot of in the trailer. Like, essentially, it looks like it's Ahsoka and Sabine show, which is very interesting. Of course, that's where we left Rebels. So it's not surprising that it's the two of them are the focus. But who is Sabine? Sabine is a Mandalorian from a historically significant Mandalorian clan, the Wrens, that we know is going to be a huge part of the show, as we said. She began training with the Empire as a youth, but then left that and joined the rebellion as part of the Rebels and Ghost crew. She's big into her art, particularly spray painting. You'll notice she always has cool, colorful armor and dyed hair, and she often uses her love of art to create disguises. So, for example, if they ever need to sneak into Imperial headquarters and Rebels, she's able to dress everyone up really quickly, in particular like droids and stuff like that as well. She also once crucially held the Darksaber during a Mandalorian civil war, where she was restored. She restored her family's influence and reunited with them, threatening briefly to unite the embattled country before rejoining the rebellion and leaving the Darksaber in the hands of bo-katan. And we all know how well that went. Of course, she eventually lost that to Moff Gideon. Sabine is a great character, looking to get a giant push here. And also we do see Sabine with a lightsaber. Now, we know where that lightsaber came from, and we'll discuss that in a bit, but we see her crucially calling Ahsoka Master. What do you read into that, and what could her role be? Because one thing to remember is that Sabine, for as much of a badass as she is, she's a Mandalorian, so she can fight like a motherfucker. We've never seen her be Force sensitive. Is this a massive twist, or is something else going on?
See, this is where the whole Ahsoka backstory comes in. Ahsoka is not a Jedi. It's as simple as that. And I am saying it now when we get into the show, she is not a Jedi. Does that mean that she's training Sabine to be a Jedi? I'm going to say it right now. No. Mm-hmm. She's not training her to be a Jedi. She's training her as a Jedi, but not to be a Jedi.
Yeah.
So essentially, she's going to get the same training. Will she be Force sensitive? I'm going to say no. For the simple fact is, we saw none of that, not a smattering, not a single drop of it in Rebels. And it's as simple as that. We didn't see any of it. So she's training her in the ways of the Jedi, but she's not going to be a Jedi. And again, that's going to bring us back to be able to say The Last Jedi, because there was a film called The Last Jedi. At the end of the day, this is how they get away with having people who are like Jedi, but not Jedi, so they can actually say the words The Last Jedi. Because by the time the sequel trilogy happens, we know that Ahsoka is gone, because we hear her voice as a Force ghost type of situation. So we know she's gone at that point. That doesn't mean Sabine is. You know, that doesn't mean to be. So that's how they're going to get away. I think that's how they're going to get away with the fact that people have lightsabers. They're not Jedi, though. So when it comes to Sabine, I think she's been trained in the ways of the Jedi. So trained to use a lightsaber, trained in certain techniques and fighting stances and things like that. It's all, when it comes to that type of stuff, you hear loads about that in the Clone Wars. Can't recommend the Clone Wars enough. You really have to watch it if you've not seen it. It's fucking amazing. Like, it goes into the lore far better than 9 films did.
Yeah.
You know, it really, really does. You learn so much about so many different characters, so many different parts of Star Wars. So I believe she is being trained in the ways of the Jedi, not to be a Jedi. There was no Force sensitivity there. Generally, when it comes to Force sensitivity, you know, you see it as a child, or you see, you know, as they're coming up to. It's kind of like the Harry Potter thing. It really, really is like Harry Potter thing. It's like they would do things without knowing they were doing it. And that's how I look at it. Not that we're going to be talking about that, but listen, that's fine.
We're definitely going to make some more Harry Potter comps.
Yes, absolutely. But
we've got Harry Potter to come, like.
But when it comes to, I don't think she's going to be Force sensitive. But is she going to be badass with a lightsaber? Yes, because who's her master? Fucking Ahsoka. Because Ahsoka is one of the most badass people with a pair of lightsabers you'll ever find. She beat Maul. She went toe to toe with Vader. She went up against every single evil Force user in the Clone Wars and survived. She went up against Dooku. She went up against bald bitch's face. What's her name? Ventress. She had two, like Ventress. She went up against Ventress. She went up against Maul and Maul's badass brother.
Grievous.
And Grievous as well. She went up against all of them and survived. So if she can survive that, she can survive anything. And if nothing else, she's only going to get better. You know, you don't get worse as you get older as a Jedi or as a non-Jedi, whatever way you want to look at it. You only get better with the lightsabers, and she is badass with them. She has some cool lightsabers, and the fact that they're white, the only white lightsabers we have ever seen. You know, so that justifies to me that she's not a Jedi. She doesn't recognize Jedi because she uses her emotions and stuff like that. And that's essentially what Ahsoka's doing. And they think Sabine is gonna go along that way. Sabine will use her emotions to determine how she fights. And I think that's essential for this because she is also in search of someone just like Ahsoka. And to be logical, to be just purely logical and just be calm and all that, that's not going to work anymore. The ways of the Jedi are essentially dead. Leave that stuff to Luke Skywalker and his new Jedi Order. Yeah, I'm sure that's going to work out great. But when it comes to this, you have it basically. This is almost a buddy series now because this is the Ahsoka and Sabine. We are going to see the other characters, the beloved characters we want to see, but essentially it's going to be mostly about these two and about finding this particular person because that is the mission, and it's exciting. So yeah, we'll see.
But if you're talking about badass women in the Star Wars universe, particularly Rebels, before we stop off at the destination we know we're going to, we need to talk about Hera Syndulla. And also, of course, her beloved droid, Chopper, who we know is going to be in here. It seems like we're getting a lot of Chopper. I don't know how much Hera we're getting, but it seems like we're getting a lot of Chopper. Hera is an absolute badass, one of the most skilled pilots you've ever seen in Star Wars, and was also the calm-headed leader of the Ghost crew. She was the partner of Jedi Kanan Jarrus, rest in peace. Oh my God, still traumatized. Who was also on the crew, but tragically and obviously traumatized, and he passed away, saving the Ghost crew in a rebel rescue mission for Hera, who'd been held hostage by Thrawn and the Empire. They have a son together, so she's a mother when we meet her, Jason. We don't know if we're going to see Jason in here, but Jason'd be well grown up now at this stage, who we met at the end of Rebels. Hera is an absolute badass, and I don't think she's going to, but I hope she gets used in a primary role, not just a cameo. She fought the Battle of Endor and was one of the unsung heroes of the rebellion. She became a top, highly respected commander throughout that. Also worth mentioning is her droid Chopper, who's likely the sassiest droid in the universe, including C-3PO, and seemed poised to finally get the exposure he deserves. Chopper is a top 5 droid, and there's a lot of amazing droids in Star Wars. And again, a lot of people are going to have him at number 1. I don't blame them because he may be the most charismatic droid. Are you expecting much of Hera here and Chopper?
I'll do Hera first because I'll get to Chopper second. Hera is, as I 100% agree, is one of the most badass women in all of Star Wars. Amazing pilot, I would say on par or maybe a little bit below Anakin Skywalker for pilot skills, and we know how good he was. He was fantastic. Hera is one of those characters that you just love. She's almost motherly to the other members of the crew. Yeah. She wears her heart in her sleeve. She does anything for anybody. She's a big proponent of rebellion and fighting against the Empire. Clearly, she was there. She was at the Battle of. She was in. What was it bloody called? The Battle of. Oh, it's for a Rogue One. Scarif, Battle of Scarif. There you go. She was at the Battle of Scarif because we saw not only was Ghost one or what was the name of her ship?
Ghost, yeah.
Ghost.
Ghost. And then the Phantom as well was the smaller. Yeah.
That's right. So we see Ghost in the Battle of above Scarif. It was confirmed the Battle of Endor as well. She was there. So she's gone through battle after battle after battle, fighting for the rebellion, finally getting the New Republic that she has wanted to help achieve. Obviously, what's happening here, and you can see it in the trailer, is, and this seems to be something that just happens in Star Wars, is that they have to fight to save themselves or to fight a rebellion or to ward off an empire. As soon as it happens, they think they're hunky-dory. But once somebody comes along with a warning, they're like, it's fine. It'll be fine. It's fine. And this seems to happen in Star Wars a lot. And it seems to be happening in this now. From the trailer, it looks like Hera is warning somebody or some people about something that's happening and they're not listening. So she now has to go off and do it her bloody self like she always did. And that's just Hera being an absolute badass.
Yes.
Are we going to see the son? I'm not too sure. I'd like to even see, but even if the brief cameo, or even if he's working with her on the Ghost, that would be great. The fact that we are going to see the Ghost, because we saw it in the trailer, I'm like, yes, we're getting the Ghost live action Ghost. Yes. Not that it's live action, but yeah, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
It's going to be great. Now, Chopper. I met I met my first chopper at Comic-Con last weekend.
Oh,
So there was 3 R2D2s, and I suggested to the owners, I said, you need to do the Spider-Man pose, pointing at each other, of all 3 R2D2s. And then out of nowhere, fucking Chopper comes along. I was like, it's a fucking Chopper here. Oh my God. Like, there was a Chopper, there was a BB-8, there was 3 R2D2s. But for
unbelievable.
me, it was all about Chopper. I'm like, oh. And the arms were working as well. I was like, oh my God, that is badass. Now, Chopper for me, and I'll see if you agree with me here. Chopper for me is the Rocket Raccoon of Star Wars.
Yes, I love that. Yes,
Because
brilliant.
he's sassy, he's badass, he curses, and we know he curses because clearly he's cursing. And he goes around fixing fucking everything. That's exactly. And because he's, R2 wasn't sassy. He was like, yeah, I'll do that. No problem. I'll go do it. But he'd argue a complaint to C-3PO. But he doesn't, sorry, not Rocket. Chopper doesn't have that. He was just like, he's like, Hero's like, go do this. Oh, do I have to do this again? Fine. I'll go. And he's complaining, and he's complaining.
Yeah.
Like, he is going to be badass. Because we see him so much in the trailer, means we are going to see more. It's not going to be a cameo for Hero. We are going to see more of Hero. We're going to see Ghost. We're going to see Hero. We're going to see Chopper. Absolutely love it. There is one thing though that you said there. I'm certainly not going to question you. I'm not going to question you on it because he is referred to it as in the series. But was Kanan Jarrus a full Jedi?
Okay, Grand Admiral Thrawn there, like fucking shit talking. He was a Jedi. He got trained.
He was
got trained, but
he wasn't made a Jedi. He was a Padawan to a Jedi, but he never finished his training.
He killed Inquisitors. When you kill Inquisitors, you get your Jedi stripes, okay? Because they were full Jedis who went to the dark side. So, like, yeah, he's a Jedi. He's a Jedi. He trained he trained. We'll say his name. We somehow got through the majority of this, but fuck this. Kanan Jarrus is a Jedi because he trained Ezra fucking Bridger. Okay, that's the name we've been dodging about making. Somehow we've spoken at length about Rebels and setting this series up without talking about the lead character here because we wanted to give him his own section. Ezra Bridger.
He needed it. He really needed it. Yes.
He does. AKA Star Wars Harry Potter, with Harry Potter, of course, being Wizard Luke Skywalker. Let's just call a spade a spade. Orphan child or presumed orphan child who has powers that he didn't know he had and discovers them and becomes the audience avatar into this world. He's the lead character of Rebels, who we meet at the start of the series as an orphan teen taking care of himself in his home planet of Lothal by robbing from the Empire. He meets our heroes and they go for the same loot and then joins them, initially reluctantly, before learning from Kanan that he in fact has Jedi powers. We watch him train, grow, and become one of the main forces in the rebellion. People who credit Ezra Bridger as an influence include Leia fucking Skywalker. All right, she says that he's an influence on her standing up and joining the rebellion. He is a constant thorn in the Empire side. He becomes a stronger Jedi with a connection to animals like Purgils, aka whales who can travel through space, and also Loth wolves, aka force-sensitive giant wolves who live on Lothal, which is his home planet. He's also dabbled in the more mystical elements of the Force, as well as connecting with animals. He became familiar with the likes of holocrons and saving Ahsoka from Vader, as we discussed in the World Between Worlds gateway that controls all of space and time. So again, Ezra Bridger is arguably one of the most powerful Jedis. He may have been, if what happened at the end of Rebels didn't happen, he may have been Luke Skywalker. Again, there's very serious Chosen One vibes. Like, if you want to say that Luke Skywalker is actual Harry Potter, then like Ezra Bridger is Neville Longbottom, who's like, he's the real hero. He's the real hero, actually. I think he's better. I think in a different world, he's better. Look, watch Rebels for Ezra's full story. It's amazing. And it's impossible for us to recap everything that he went through. But when we left him in the final episode of Rebels, he had disappeared, having used the Purgils to stop Thrawn from destroying Lothal and going into hyperspace together to where we don't know, for how long we don't know. What we do know is that Thrawn survived, but had nothing from Ezra like beyond his lightsaber being left with, we heard nothing from Ezra beyond seeing his lightsaber being left with Sabine, and he left 2 messages to 2 people. One was to Sabine where he says, "I'm counting on you." Never knew what that meant. And also another notable thing was the last thing he said to Ahsoka was, "Come and find me." And that is exactly what this is. The final shot of Rebels that we've spoken about and alluded to already was Ahsoka reuniting with Sabine after the Battle of Endor, an undetermined amount of time. We don't know when exactly it was, but the mission we saw in the Mandalorian saying that the mission she was on was looking for Grand Admiral Thrawn. That was bullshit, and that was a wink and a nod to the fans of Rebels without telling us that we were getting this show, because they weren't ready to announce it then, because the real mission and the reason they're looking for Thrawn is they are looking for Ezra fucking Bridger. And guess what? We already know that in some form Ezra is going to be in this series. We've seen him already in the form of a hologram, okay, which could have been a message from the past, but he's also been cast with Eman Esfandi cast to play him. It would be weird if we didn't get him and they were all like, "No, he's dead all along." So we probably are getting him. Let's call a spade a spade. But again, it is a build-up. It's like, in wrestling, when you know a wrestler's coming back, but you don't know if he's going to be in the Royal Rumble or not. It's like that, essentially. Mm-hmm. Do we get that early into Ahsoka, or is it something that, like Tron, they'll save it to the end? And what are you looking for and expecting from Ezra here, Jerry?
Okay, so Ezra, again, one of my favorite characters. One of the most badass Jedi. I'll always maintain that the best Jedi, the strongest Jedi of all, was always Obi-Wan Kenobi. I will always say that. It's never Anakin. It's never Luke. It's never fucking Leia. Not Leia. Rey. It's never fucking her.
Yeah.
Always Obi-Wan for me. The most powerful, the best, in all sense of the word, Jedi, 100%.
Okay.
But coming close to him is Ezra. Because like that, I think the Jedi know they were wrong. At the end, that's why Yoda kind of tells Luke in ghost form years later that, we made a lot of mistakes. We shouldn't have made them. Completely getting rid of emotion from the idea of being a Jedi was the wrong thing, because that is literally what leads to the dark side. You take away emotion, then people get emotional, but they get far too emotional and they go to the dark side. If you're allowed to express your emotions, you're not going to have all this pent up shit. That's exactly what Ezra is. Ezra is a Jedi without having the calming effect of being a Jedi. He has the power, and we know he has the power. Like one of the best scenes, I think, in all of Rebels is him and the Loth Wolves. That's what they're called. There's Loth Wolves.
Yeah.
Oh my god! Just see, like, he's there, and they just loom up behind him, like, it's hard.
Yeah.
But there's a bigger reason as to why he is such a good Jedi, but also a very powerful one, because he went toe to toe with the big bad himself, fucking Palpatine. And he not only did he go toe to toe with him, he resisted every ounce of power from Palpatine that could be gotten. Doesn't matter whether he's there as a hologram or not. Palpatine can go across galaxies. His power was that vast. He went toe to toe with him, and he resisted the dark side. He resisted everything that Palpatine offered him, and he beat him essentially. It wasn't a lightsaber duel, but it doesn't matter because he beat Palpatine. But now we come to Ahsoka, and this makes me worried. But the reason it makes me worried is this. I have this is my theory, and I hope I'm wrong. This is a thing where I really hope I'm wrong.
Gary.
We in the trailer we see I don't know the actors' names, but we see a man and a woman. The man being the guy with the white hair and white beard with the 2 lightsabers. Sorry, not with the lightsaber. So you've got the man and the woman, and they're not Sith, but they're something akin to Sith or dark side or wherever it may be, and they're hunting for something as well. But we also see a masked, double-bladed lightsaber wielding Inquisitor-like person fighting Ahsoka. And I am terrified that is Ezra.
Oh, Jerry.
I am terrified that it's him, because we heard mention of him in the trailers. We saw that one small hologram, and it's not a message. It's just a hologram of Ezra on a turntable type thing. That's all we see. And I'm like, if that's fucking Ezra in that suit, I oh I am
Very.
genuinely terrified about this because there's something in the image of him fighting Ahsoka and the fact that the person is wearing a mask. I'm like, oh, it's fucking Ezra.
Jerry, you're after blowing my little puny mind. Oh my god. Oh
Now
my
the thing is,
god.
I have made these predictions before, and I'm like, it's definitely that, it's definitely that, it's definitely that, and I hope it is. I'm really hoping it's not. I'm really hoping this is. I'm hoping I'm wrong, and then he's just in some prison with a beard down to his knees, like that Tron has held him in. But there is just something about this trailer or the trailers. There's something about how you look at the person with the mask.
Mm.
Uh they're not tall, they're not short, but they're thin. Take away everything. It's Ezra. I'm like, no.
Do the maths as well. Like, there's a lot that goes into this because, first off, like, last time we saw him, Ezra effectively he sacrificed himself, like not his life, but like in terms of like he knew that the only way to get rid of Tron was if he went away with Tron. So the two of them are there together, and essentially he has gone to the vast depths of space. He is unfindable essentially for years and years and years, but he wherever he is, he's with Tron, and that is a very strong voice to have in your head. That is very influential. But what we know in Mando is that Tron has managed to send a message that he is returning. So whatever happens, Tron, and like again, every bit of evidence from Mando points to Tron is coming back hot. He's coming back strong. He's coming back in a position of power. So he seems to have gotten the better of whatever has gone on in the meantime. And the path of least resistance, which means that he doesn't kill Ezra Bridger, is he takes Ezra Bridger over to his side, which, and I'm thinking out loud here because I hadn't actually thought of that, it's a heartbreaking theory emotionally. It's a phenomenal theory in terms of entertainment and the potential arc it gives. It gives Ezra the opportunity to have his own Darth Vader like redemption. Do you know what I mean? Like it gives so the battle becomes to rescue Ezra. If that's the case, though, I think we're getting it. I don't think we're getting it early, but I think we need to get it at least halfway. And I think
Yeah.
we need a few episodes with it. So I don't think it's going to be a case of like we meet Ezra. The end of the season is Ezra to be continued because a lot of the audience won't know who Ezra is. So it needs to have punch. We need to introduce it. We need to see him. They need to feel it. So again, I'm thinking very much on the spot, but I think that is an amazing theory. And I will be only disappointed from here on out if it's not that now. But yeah, it's great. And it makes a lot of sense. Unfortunately, it's again emotionally crushing because we have so much riding on Ezra. And again, that moment was him growing up and being a man and accepting responsibility. It would be tragic if the next time we saw him, he had turned, but it's on the table. Terrifying. That has blown my mind.
Yeah.
Okay, we've spent so much time already discussing the main characters. I want to do a lightning round of other characters. We won't have full discussions of them and we can discuss them if and when they show up, but I want to ask, are we going to see these characters, places, things, etc., etc.? Okay. First off, we saw him in the Mandalorian season 3. Was it a preview or was it just they were giving him to us then to kind of wink and nod that this was coming, but also that was our shot at getting him because now he's in the New Republic. Zeb Oralius, are we going to get him in this show?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll just give you a brief thing. Why? Yes, we're going to see him. No, he's not going to be part of the crew. He is part, as we've seen, he's part of the New Republic now. He is an X-Wing pilot or a Y-Wing pilot, whatever it may be. He was off there with Dave Filoni with his cowboy cap in the bar, having a few drinks, We are going to see him. It'll be a thing where it'll be probably one episode and he'll meet up with Sabine, or we'll meet up with Hera, wherever it may be. I don't see him being in the whole thing, but we are going to see him. If we don't see him, then Filoni's made a huge fucking mistake by giving us him in Mandalorian, because by giving us him there, you're like, okay, well he has to be in Ahsoka now because this is Rebels. Well, Rebels season 6 is a season 6. Oh, I think it was 5 season Rebels.
No, this would be season 5.
So essentially season 5 of Rebels.
Yeah.
If he's not in it, it's a huge mistake. Huge mistake.
Yeah.
Even if we only get it for one episode, which I wouldn't be happy, really. I'd want him for more than that. I want him to be part of the crew, to be on the gun while Hera's like, fucking shoot the thing down while I'm fucking trying something. It has to happen.
Yeah.
So if we only get one episode, I'll be content, but I won't be happy.
I think there's a shot that we get him maybe for 1 or 2 episodes of this in more of a cameo role. He's pointing them in the right direction. He's helping out an old friend. But then in season 2, he rejoins the crew. Do you know what I mean? So I can see that. If we're going to get Zeb, are we going to get who I hope, I don't know, I shipped him, Callus, the best redemption arc in Star Wars history. Yes, I know what I'm saying there.
I would kind of agree with you there because Callus, it is Callus. Yeah.
Agent Callus.
He was an arsehole.
Yeah.
The thing is, he reminds me in a way of Hooks, that he was an arsehole and he was a really bad person. He was an arsehole who actually turned out to be, oh my God, he's actually a good guy in disguise. You know, how stupid did they make Hooks look in the third movie when it turned out that he was actually a double agent? Whereas Callus was like, oh, this is a big deal. Callus is actually on our side. Holy shit. So to see him in it, yes. It's unfortunate though that we wouldn't get the voice that played him in the show, because the voice played him in the show was actually I can never remember his name, but they wouldn't be able to do it. But do we see Callus? I would like to say yes, but I'm going to say no, because they're going to have a hard enough time explaining who Ahsoka, Sabine, Hera, Chopper, Ezra, and everyone else is in this show, and then having to explain him as well. Probably not. Probably not.
It's David Oyelowo, who you may know from Silo most recently. He was in the incredible first episode of that. Obviously, the reason that he can't, David Oyelowo is black, Callus is not. But also as well, do you know what? I'd actually consider it more authentic if they changed the character's look and then they had the voice actor. I don't know. I have more respect for that than just completely retconning it and then just writing him out. So I wouldn't mind
if he's in it. I want him to do it.
Yeah, I'd love
thing I want him to do, because for me it's about the voice.
The voice is better than
there's a reason they have Mickelson playing Thrawn, because the voice is so good. That's exactly what you think of a Thrawn. So Callus has to be him. If it's not him, then it's like don't.
That's fair.
You know,
someone we know who's going to play the actor if he is in it. But is he going to be in it? Captain Rex. Are we getting for the first time ever live action Rex?
I beg to differ there. Rex was actually in Return of the Jedi.
Which one? What?
Yeah. They've confirmed it's him.
Okay.
Do you not know this? I'm actually quite surprised. If you look at on Endor, some of the rebels that are on Endor, there's a rebel that has a helmet and a white beard. And they've actually confirmed, I was like, no, that's actually Rex.
Yeah, that's not real.
It's not really Rex.
Have Rex. Yeah.
It's not really Rex. Not really Rex. But they're like, oh no, that's Rex.
Yeah, you can't do that.
I've seen some cosplayers going around with the white beard and the whole green gear and all. I'm Captain Rex. I'm like, yeah, okay, of course.
No. Okay. Do we get him in Ahsoka though?
I'm gonna say yes, but I think it's the only time we see him in this season. For the simple fact is, Tamora Morrison is not very favored by Disney right now, and that's probably why we're not going to get a season 2 of Boba Fett, because he's been a bit outspoken against them. The fact that he hasn't gotten a call back for anything yet, he wasn't in Mandalorian season 3. He felt like he should have gotten a little bit of Mandalorian season 3 because some of Boba Fett was the Mandalorian, and he wasn't happy about that. He wasn't happy with the fact that two episodes of his show were taken up for somebody else, and he was not happy about that. He's been very outspoken about it. Would I love to see Captain Rex? Absolutely. Live action Captain Rex. Tamora Morrison with a big, dirty white beard. Yes. And a bit of the Clone Wars armor on him. Absolutely being badass. I would love to see it happen. I think because Ahsoka is obviously in production now, a couple of years now, I think we may possibly see it, but any more after this? Probably not. But I think for me, it's about a 50-50 chance of seeing him. The fact that we got to see him for 30 seconds, and not Captain Rex, but Tamora Morrison for 30 seconds in Obi-Wan was amazing. The fact that we got to see this down on his little clone, I'm like, Jesus Christ, like there's still normal clones around. They weren't all just killed off or whatever. It's heartbreaking though to see him, because he's literally a beggar with his helmet holding the helmet now for credits. I'm like, oh my God, like this is fucking terrible. So that just strengthens the fact that if you look at it, okay, we know that we're gonna get some form of Anakin in this show.
Okay.
And Anakin was in Obi-Wan. So if you're gonna have Tamora Morrison wear a white beard in Obi-Wan, you might as well have him wear a white beard in Ahsoka.
Fair.
So I think it's a good chance, but I'm putting it at about 50-50.
There's a very good chance because Tamora Morrison is casting this show. I can reveal. So yeah, and also, so Rex is such an important person in Ahsoka's life. Ahsoka wouldn't have survived Order 66 without him. One of the most incredible episodes of Star Wars. Again, got a reminder: lightning round. Hondo, are we going to see him?
No.
I'd love to see live action Hondo, but
I would love to see him, but it's
Yeah.
a no. He's not an important enough character.
Okay,
Hold it. Season 1, maybe season 2.
Vizago. He's important in Rebels.
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. See, the two of those, as good as characters as they are, I still see. Even though this is another season of Rebels, they really have to concentrate on the main characters. A lot of the side characters are not going. You're not going to see them as much as we want to see them. As much as we will fucking berate Filoni, like, why didn't you put this person? Because he's going to hear it. You're not going to see a lot of them because they are introducing so many new characters.
Yeah.
You have that. I think she was a governor from the Mandalorian, the one that fights Ahsoka. We've already seen in the trailers. We're going to see her. We have these two Sith-like people as well that we're going to see in this show. And I'll get to them later. We'll talk about them quickly as well. But in terms of Rebel side characters, we're not going to see many. That's why, like, Callus would be up there as being one of the top ones, and I really don't think we're going to see him.
Interesting.
Captain Rex, as you said, Tamora Morrison is casting it, so we're going to see him, or we're going to see some form of clone. It has to be. It can't be anyone else other than Rex, though. Surely can't be. But
not in an Ahsoka show.
Yeah.
Interesting. I'm a bit more optimistic. They were in the finale. They were in the final battle in Rebels, and they played crucial parts. Do we see anyone from the Mandalorian? Any kind of Mando exclusive characters? Do we have a crossover yet there?
Yes. Not who you would probably expect, because you say to yourself, if you're going to see any crossover, you might see maybe some Mandalorians or something along the lines. No, I think if there's one person we're going to see from the Mandalorian, I don't see. Again, you know me, I'm terrible with names. Is that Imperial agent that's now working for the Republic? Whatever her name was, I can't remember her name, but the one that warned Gideon that. I think it's her.
Okay.
Because she's going to be still working working for the New Republic. If we're going to see anyone, sure, because she's now believes that Gideon is gone. So she's going to need to contact somebody else.
Oh, that is a deep cut, but I really like that. That is very interesting.
Now, it's a slight one, but I like the idea of it.
I think they think she's important. She's something that they've introduced to the canon. So yeah, I don't hate it. I could see that. Are we going to spend much time? We know that we're going to be in Lothal at one stage. Are we going to spend much time in Lothal?
No. There's no point in searching in Lothal for Ezra because he ain't there. He is out there. Now, what you were saying earlier on about that ending of Rebels, I think that ending of Rebels is the very beginning of Ahsoka. And the reason I say that is that you see Ahsoka wearing a very similar kind of headgear, cloak type thing as you do at the end of Rebels. You see her wearing it in the trailer. You see the same 3 ships, the 2 X-Wings and this kind of almost like a hammerhead looking ship that's sideways in the last episode of Rebels and in the trailer for Ahsoka. So that to me is we are directly getting that in that first episode of Ahsoka or in the start of Ahsoka, whatever it may be. So we're definitely getting that 100%. It's I've forgotten what the bloody question is because I go on a tangent.
Much time in Lothal.
Thank you. Jesus, because you see, we're 100% getting Lothal because of that scene I was talking about. We're 100% getting it because we saw the mural on the wall that was painted by Sabine about the whole Ghost crew. We're definitely getting Lothal We're getting it for about 10 minutes in the first episode, or
Okay.
maybe half the
The
first
start
episode.
of
Maybe.
it. I think that's a good show. Yeah.
But there's no point searching. You might, if it was a thing that we're only getting one season of Ahsoka and they go off and they rescue Ezra, they bring him back to Lothal. You get them in the start at the finish, but I don't think that's going to happen. I really don't think, because this is not a one season thing. This is a Mandalorian-esque show. Boba Fett, unfortunately, will probably not get more seasons. I would love at least one more, but he's probably not going to get one. We'll see Boba Fett again. I do believe that, but we're probably not going to get Boba Fett in the season 2. In terms of this, we're getting 2 to 3 seasons of Ahsoka. It has to be. If we don't, then what's the point? We have to get 2 to 3 seasons of Ahsoka to then build up both Mando's side of things, Ahsoka side of things, to then bring it back in for that big endgame style movie that we're going to get at the end, that we've been promised at the end. So Lothal at the start for a couple of minutes. As I said, we see those ships there. We see the mural. We see Sabine on some sort of maybe speeder bike or whatever it may be, flying through the sea.
That was very Lothal. That was on, like,
very Lothal.
Yeah.
Very Lothal. So I definitely think we're getting at that first episode, not for very long, and then it's like, let's get out here. Let's go find them.
Okay. We've seen this crossed over, and it's an area Star Wars we never cross over, but we did see it in Boba Fett. Do we see Luke potentially, or do we see any of the likes? Could we see a young Kylo Ren? Could we see any crossover there? Probably a bit early for Kylo. But do we see Luke? Because we saw him with Ahsoka in the last one, and obviously we are gonna see Ahsoka revisiting her time with Anakin.
I'm gonna say no.
I hope so, yeah.
But also I hope not, because this needs to stand on its own.
Great.
The Mandalorian, they obviously Filoni and Favreau felt they needed to bring in just that little bit of Skywalker to build it up a little bit. I'm like, I don't really think it needed it that much, because I think at the time Mandalorian was absolutely badass, and it didn't necessarily need Skywalker. Did I love it? Fuck yeah, I loved it. Absolutely badass.
It made sense too for the time, like, because it made sense for a Jedi has to find him, and who the fuck else is it going to be at that time? So it made sense, and I could forgive
actual Jedi, because again, Ahsoka is not a Jedi, so she wouldn't have taken up the call because she's not a Jedi. Do we see him? No. And as I said, I really hope we don't, because it's very much in the sense of when we see him in Boba Fett, is that she's kind of reminding him that, you remind me of your father, but in a good way, blah, blah, blah. But it's almost like they're parting as well. We don't see it, but they're parting as well. It's like, you're going your way, I'm going mine. You have your job to do. Now I have to do mine. And that's what it is. So it's kind of like, she's not going to ask him for help. He's not going to be contacting her about training, because he knows what he's doing at this point. So it's a thing where they're now completely separate. She is not a Jedi, and he is trying to rebuild a Jedi. So they're very much separate. So number one, I hope we don't see it. Number two, I don't think we will.
Okay. We do have to wrap it up. We do eventually. I know we could talk for 3 hours about 100 different topics, but one thing I want to ask before we do is, we're kind of skeptical now with Star Wars shows. We've been burned a bit by Obi-Wan, the Book of Boba, and season 3. On the plus side, we know that Mando was a bit different tone, because Filoni left it in the hands of Favreau so he could focus on this. But there is concerns that what if this doesn't succeed? We spoke about it already, and the damage it could potentially do. Let's look on the more positive side. What does this need to do for you to succeed? And what do you personally want from this series? Like, what are you looking for here? Because again, there is that case of Star Wars fans. There is an element of toxicity here where sometimes no matter what they give us, it's never going to be as good as we have in our head, because we want a million different things and we never know. And eventually it can only be one show and tell one story. Let's put our heart. What does this show need to do to succeed?
That's probably one of the toughest questions you could potentially ask someone about this. It's like, everyone's going to have a different opinion as how they see this show going and how they want it to go. Even let's go back to reviews that we did from a couple of years ago. Let's look at Game of Thrones. You wanted something very different than what I wanted for the show to end in, and neither of us got what we wanted, and we were like, "Fuck was that?"
Nobody wanted Bran.
Nobody wanted Bran the Broken. Nobody wanted Bran the Broken. what I see with this is like it needs to stay. What I felt happened with the sequel trilogy, and a lot of people will be like this, is that you look at that first film, and they said, "Oh, it's too much like the originals," and then you look at the second one, and it's like it's not enough like the originals. So then, like, well, let's go back to the way we did it the first time. It was like it was so much fan service, it was sickening, but we kind of liked it. That's the way I look at it, anyway. The way I see this going is we have somebody at the helm that not only is literally the chosen one by George Lucas, and that's what he is. He is the guy that he wanted to continue the Star Wars universe with. Had he kept the property that is Star Wars, Filoni would have been on any subsequent film that Lucas did. And that is, I believe that 1,000,000% he would have been there. And the trilogy we would have gotten would have been far different to what we got. Would we have liked it? I don't know, because a lot of people didn't like the prequels. So we don't know how it would have went. But at the end of the day, the chosen one for Star Wars is at the helm of this. Now, I thought the partnership of Filoni and Favreau doing The Mandalorian was fucking brilliant.
Yeah.
But clearly something happened in that last season. So, Favreau was not on his own doing it. Filoni did have some input, but it was more Favreau.
Yeah.
But from what I've been able to gather from online sources, we'll call them, is the fact that there was someone else who stuck her nose into the third season of Mandalorian. That was Kathleen Kennedy.
Yeah.
And the fact that when she stuck her nose in, shit hit the fan and it went to shit. Now, was it the worst season of The Mandalorian ever? No.
Well, it was the worst season of The Mandalorian.
Well, I suppose, yeah. Was it the worst season of the three? Yes. But was it the worst thing we've ever seen? No. There were some parts of it that were fucking brilliant. Some of it didn't make sense. Some of it did. But at the end of the day, it was what we got. Would have been different had Favreau and Filoni been 100% on it? Probably. But probably not by that much, because Kathleen Kennedy decided to stick her nose in, and nobody's ever happy about that. So this is fully Filoni. We know that he is the man when it comes to Star Wars, because all you have to look at is Rebels, you have to look at Clone Wars, and then, of course, what have we been loving lately was the Bad Batch, and he is a part of that as well.
Yeah.
We love the Bad Batch. He doesn't go wrong with these shows. Let the man do what we know does best. So let him lead. Give him the keys to this and say, you do what you want. You have it in your head exactly what you want. You have it in your head exactly where it's going to go. You leave Filoni alone and let him do what he does best. That's how this will succeed. This is his baby. This is his show. This is the continuation from Rebels. That's how this succeeds. You give Filoni the control and the ability to do this show the way he wants. That's how we're going to get a really good show. And that's why I'm very, very hopeful for this show. Okay. Now, I have liked everything that I'm essentially one of those people that if it's Star Wars and you give it to me, I'll like it.
Same.
Will I like it as much as previous ones? No, but I'll still like it because it's fucking Star Wars. So no matter what, I'm going to like this, but it depends on how high on the scale it goes for me. Because it's Filoni, and I'd say Favreau is probably little things here and there as well, because, they seem to be a good team. I think we're going to get something that is epic. But it's all going to depend on the first couple of episodes. And essentially where they go with these characters, if they're explained properly, if they're used properly. And if there's one person I know that can handle these characters the right way, it's Filoni. So if Filoni is not part of, or if he's a secondary part of season 2, forget about it. It's dead before it even comes out. This is his baby. This is his show. We have to give him the time to do it. We now have it. We're getting 7 weeks, 8 episodes. I'm ready.
Yeah,
I am ready.
I totally agree. And yeah, just let him cook. And I think he is. I think he's got the control he needs here. But this is his moment. Like, again, he can't drop the ball here. I don't think he's going to. But this is what I want from it. And it is both the most simple answer, but the most difficult thing to do. I want Rebels season 5. And this is what I mean by that. I want just an extra season of Rebels. Don't overthink it. Give us what we love. But that is so hard to do because it is live action. Again, and I love the fact you bring You bring Laura, obviously, up, your wife up as an example of a casual fan who only watches the live action thing. There's so many of them. So it has to capture those people while also bringing us along for the ride and giving us the rebels that we know and love. So you do need a Zeb. You do need a Callus. You do need a Hondo and a Vizago. Like, they are a valid part of Rebels. Like, even if it's just for like a half an episode or just a cameo. You need the element of found family. You need that core, like, these people would die for each other and willingly put their lives down for the rest of the crew. They all believe in the same cause. They bought into each other as this found family. That is the heart of Rebels. And again, it's not, we don't want fireworks. It's not lightsaber battles. It's not anything else. It is the love that these characters share for each other and the love we feel for them and the bond we feel for them as well, as a result of their bond being so strong. That is the heart of Rebels, and it needs that heart. It can't just be Ahsoka and Sabine go on Mandalorian style adventures. It won't work if it's that show. And that is my fear for what the worst case scenario of this show is, to just goes totally off on its own path. When it doesn't need to. There's a winning formula it needs to obey. But I trust Filoni, and I trust him to do it. Another thing I definitely want to see is, I'm going to bring up a quote from the great Zeb Aurelius, who, one of my favorite quotes, and I think it sums up what I love about these shows so much. It's when Zeb turns around and says, "When it gets strange like this, it's actually a good thing." And that's what I want. I want the weirdness. I want the mythical stuff. I want the stuff that gets into what is the Force, how does that work, and really digs in deep into the what is all of this and what does it all mean and what's the bigger picture stuff. You know what I mean? When you talk about episodes like The World Between Worlds, when you talk about like the Mortis arc in Clone Wars as well, that's the kind of weird shit that I love that Filoni gets into, that we've never gotten by anyone else. Even George Lucas didn't have the balls to get in this deep. George Lucas, when he decided to go, what's Star Wars really about, thought it's a political thriller. And that's what we got in the prequel trilogy. That's not what we want. Filoni gets that Star Wars is magical. It's like, again, it has this like mystical component to it all. And just takes us on that kind of sci-fi journey there. So I would love if they got in deep, at least like kind of with some theory as they can, while also retaining that grounded found family story that they're able to do. That's all I want, but also that is the hardest thing to do because it has to tick so many boxes and please so many masters. But I just want Rebel Season 5 because I fucking love that show. And you know what, Jerry? I can't fucking wait to have these characters back in our lives. And we're going to have them in a week. And we're going to get to discuss them every fucking week on this show. I cannot wait to have these chats with you. Even if it all goes to shit, no better person I'd rather experience and process that all with than your good self. So I'm really looking forward to these chats. Jerry, thanks for joining me to preview this show. And yeah, let's do it. May the Force be with you until next week.